Hi everyone, welcome to Hack the Narrative, where we break myths, tell truths, and hack the stories behind the headlines. This is Started from Shell, the episode where we deep dive into the real stories behind cybersecurity leaders who didn't just climb the ladder, they built it from the ground up. I'm your host Kamran Saifullah, and today's episode is exactly why we created this show. Our guest started out as an apprentice, no connections, no shortcuts, just curiosity, hustle, and grit. And today, he's the head of cyber at one of the UK's leading MSSPs, managing threats at scale, leading teams, and shaping the future of defensive cyber. We'll talk about the early grind, navigating imposter syndrome, leading under pressure, and the tools and mindset that got him from console to command. If you're trying to break into cyber, grow your role, or lead with purpose, this episode is your blueprint. Hi Vlad, welcome to the show.
Hi Kamran, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure speaking here.
So Vlad, just trying to understand, what was the moment or experience that made you say, cybersecurity, that's what I want to do?
That's a really good question. So for me, it was a bit not really a straight line. I started as an apprentice, as you're aware. I started doing application support, so learning things like SQL, learning how to write a little bit of PowerShell and so on. That's how I started. Later down the line, where I was working, there was a really nice opportunity that looked like a really good fit for me at the time. It was a cloud engineer. Unfortunately, I wasn't the one selected for the role, and then the way I saw it, I was like, yes, I need to find my niche. So I started looking around. I looked at DevOps back in the day. I'm speaking about maybe 8 years ago or something. Saw that interesting, but then I came across security. So I started with hacking some boxes, and then I was like, yeah, I really like this one. Started doing an apprenticeship, and really from there it was just game on, really. Started doing a degree, started learning more about security, network, coding, Python, and a little bit of everything. That's the moment when I said, yeah, security, that's what I want to do. And I never looked back after that moment. How I classify it as is the best thing that never happened to me.
Oh, that's actually really the best thing that ever happened to you. So can you take us back to your very first day as an apprentice? What do you remember the most?
What I remember the most? So I've done a course with an apprenticeship, an apprenticeship provider here in the UK, but it was called Princess Trust, where we studied for like a few weeks, actually a month, at Fujitsu, where we learned bits and bobs about everything. So a bit of programming, a bit of networking, a bit of all those. So after that, you could go on an apprenticeship. Some of my colleagues went on apprenticeships with Fujitsu to work directly for them. I wasn't one of those fortunate ones, and I found an apprenticeship that looked interesting. I didn't know that my skill set was on par with what they're looking for, and I said, yeah, I can understand a bit of SQL. I know how to work with it. Eventually, they hired me. So they wanted me to start the next week. So I spent I think I had like 3 or 4 days. I spent those nights and days included to learn SQL until the point when I could actually write a query without anything. So that's probably one of the memory that I have where I didn't know anything, but they hired me and I learned everything on the go. And within maybe a month or two from when I started working, they were actually trusting me to be able to do queries on production, which was really interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that starting from apprentice, doing or learning SQL injection for 1 week and then running commands or SQL injections or probably SQL statements on the production application or server maybe. So talking about the same thing, I know it's difficult to get into cybersecurity because you have to have a background or you have to have a plan or something. So did you feel out of your depth at the start, or did you have a plan from day one when you started in cybersecurity?
That's a good question. That's actually a great question. I didn't really have a plan, to be fair with you. I just had a dream. I was like, this is what I want to do. How do I do it? How do I make it happen? Luckily enough for me, I was on an apprenticeship, and that apprenticeship had some really good teachers as well that really helped me. It was before COVID when I did all my studying and so on. I know that past COVID, things have become more difficult for people to get into security. So I was on the luckier side from that perspective. The courses were really well suited. Some of the most amazing teachers I've ever had and I've ever met. I still keep in touch with some of them. I learned things around OSINT. I learned things around like actual hacking from a ex-hacker, which helped me shape my perspective. So going back to the question, I was out of my depth. I didn't know what I need to do. I didn't get into it from the beginning. I didn't have a plan. Probably like 99% of everyone, and yeah, didn't know what to do. So I said, yeah, let me just see how many things I can learn and how can I apply them in my day to day. That's the way it goes.
Yeah, exactly. And there are so many things in cybersecurity, because once you jump into the field, you realize, oh, it's not just cybersecurity. There is a lot within the field itself. So definitely it becomes difficult. Not having a plan, I think you go here and there. So it becomes difficult initially, but I think you have done an amazing job into
Thank you.
making sure that you climb the ladders. So talking on the same, like at that time, when you're doing everything and you started as an apprentice, did you ever imagine you would one day be leading one of the UK's top cyber teams?
Honestly, no. I never imagined myself to be in this kind of role. I was thinking that I'm going to be the techie. I'm always working on something, tinkering with something, learning something, building something. You can imagine. You have opportunities and opportunities, but speaking wasn't really for me. Working with people wasn't really my thing. I worked in internal teams, and now I have to work with customers. It's very different. I'm working with a lot more people day in, day out. There are days where I have meetings from 9 o'clock until 5 o'clock. No break. So
Yeah.
it happens. Yeah, I didn't know, and I from the get-go,
Yeah.
I
So
just went into it.
yeah, exactly. I feel you how difficult it is. The next question is on the same stuff actually, because you have been doing everything by yourself. You have been a doer, but it takes a different mindset to be a leader in yourself, and in especially in an MSSP, which is one of the tops in the UK as well. So what was the most difficult shift in the mindset for you when moving and shifting from being a doer towards a leader?
Phew, difficult one. Uh, when you're a doer, you kind of know what the outcome needs to be, and you expect it to be in a very specific way. When you step back a bit and become a leader, you need to take it a step back as well and see that the solution is what matters, getting to the outcome. Not everyone is going to get to the outcome the same way as you would get, and that's probably one of the important bits, because people don't see it. They think there's only one way of going from A to B, but what if they go underneath? What if they go above it? What if there are so many alternatives? That's one of the more difficult items of not expecting to be the same way you do it. Also, delegating. That wasn't something that I came across, like giving a task to someone else, explaining how they need to do it. I was more of like, yep, I'll get it done. No worries, I'll get it done.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are the two things.
Yeah. So was there a particular project or turning point that made you think that I've leveled up, maybe as a leader or as a doer or something?
That's a great one. Over the course of my career, I worked on multiple projects for customers. When I realized that I leveled up is when I was able to communicate clearly with key stakeholders and explain to them the risks they face and the challenges, how to overcome them, rather than saying, hey, this is the solution you need. I would now, this change probably happened maybe 2 years ago, and so when I took it a step back and put myself in a customer's shoes. Okay, why would you come to us to help you? What is the value you get out of it? Being able to, it was something that I wasn't familiar with. Is putting security in business terms and showing business outcomes rather than trying to be like, hey, you need this, and they're gonna be like, why do I need it? That's just an additional cost to my business. And explaining it, hey, if you implement this security controls, you're going to secure your business, your premium for insurance is going to go down, and you're better than your competitors potentially.
Yeah, exactly. So in the early days, like how did you juggle learning deeply while still delivering under pressure? Because you have mentioned one of the top things that we also ask in the interviews when we are hiring someone, like how you can basically convert a technical terminology into a business language so the business is able to understand it better. So how do you take it forward?
It's a skill that is not that it's really hard to come by. If you don't understand both sides of the business, it's very difficult. For me, I had the benefit of being the technical person, so working through my hacking certifications, doing all the tinkering, doing all those things, I understood that part. But I didn't really have much knowledge. So I worked with various colleagues that are from sides that communicate more with customers. For example, a shout out to my CTO, which helped me a lot during my career to get more familiar with how to speak to customers. That's probably one of the things, and being able to, for me, to develop the skills of speaking to them in business terms. It's the main ways you can learn to speak business as a security person is understanding things like what's the risk, what's the business outcome, what are the consequences, being able to put those in terms on paper and explain why is it important. That's probably the kind of things you need to do.
Yeah, true. So as a cybersecurity leader, how do you keep your technical edge without getting burned in the weeds?
I don't. I get myself burned and then take it a step back and realize that, hey, I think I've done a bit of a mistake here. I went way too deep. As you know, all of us like to research, right? We find something interesting on YouTube or LinkedIn or somewhere, and we start tunnel visioning and going straight at it. It could be encryption, it could be a very particular topic. And then you start reading, and then you realize, you look at the time, oh, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and I haven't done anything. Yeah, it happens, and that's probably one of the ways you learn. It's getting burned by something and then realizing that it might not be useful now, but at some point it's definitely going to come in handy.
Definitely. So what personal strengths do you credit most for your rise, and what did you have to unlearn?
One of the things I really hate speaking about myself. It's passion and drive. Since early days, I was the kind of person that would spend hours and hours and hours trying to figure out what is the solution, why it happened, going and diving into a subject and then knowing more about it. Probably that's one of the skills that pushed me forward and probably helped you as well, because since we know each other for the last, how many, 7 years or something like that, from the early days of Try Hack Me, when the platform was like, maybe had 100 people and so on. Everyone knew everyone. Look now. It's probably that's really it, is the passion and drive, being able to meet something. One other thing probably that I found really helpful for me, I tried implementing security on what I was doing. So rather than looking at it, oh yeah, I need to find a job in security or I need to do something in security, I come at it from a different angle, be like, what can I do now to showcase security, or what can I change to make it more secure? For example, people may not see that implementing, let's say, automation, like a script or a PowerShell that does something, might actually improve security. Because think about it, you don't have the mistakes of someone manually inputting the data and creating a user in Active Directory. What if you create a policy or a procedure to do something? That way you make sure that everyone creates and does the same thing in the same manner, rather than very different depending on the person. That's also security, right? But people see it that it's just tech. It's people, process, technology. There's many things you can do.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you have rightly mentioned the programming and automation and everything. I think that's a lifesaver. I remember in old times, everybody used to say, even in the cyber, like, programming is not required, it's not mandatory, but it's a good to have skill. But I think with what has changed in the market, I think programming is the necessity now. It's a mandatory thing because you should be automating stuff. So I was also looking into one of the tools for the, this UI testing tools. I was like, okay, fine. If we can also use those for doing web application pen testing, it's going to be like positive cases or negative cases, but eventually we can do something out of it. So I was like, okay, fine. So the way we are moving towards and the world and the digitalization and everything, I think programming is something that everybody should know, and they should be having like a proficiency in at least one of the programming languages like Python or C, all the kind of stuff. And I think that's going to help the organizations a lot as well. So talking about all these things, definitely a lot of people will be listening to the podcast as well. So are there any specific certifications, courses, or tools that were true game changers for you, not just like CV boosters, for you and as well as for the community as well?
First, I would like to comment on what you said earlier about programming languages. The only thing I know like by heart is SQL, because I use it in my day-to-day. Everything else I Googled,
Yeah.
muddled my way through it. I mean, I may not be able to write full-on Python scripts. I might not be able to do those, but I know how to put one and one together to make something work. And the same goes to my attempt when I've done OCSP. I wasn't really familiar with all the scripts, but I kind of can make sense of looking at the code to make sure I understand what it does and how I can change it to make it work. That's probably one of the things. So while probably things change in today's world, you can be more efficient, you can be faster, but you also have tools that you can utilize. So moving away from the kind of point of doing like vibe coding, you have all the alternatives. You should use AI, you should use everything you can to be able to finish the job. It doesn't matter. It matters that you learn bits and pieces on the way and you manage to hit your end goal. And now to move on to the certification side of things and what helped me in my career, probably the learning experience more than the certification itself. I've done quite a handful of certifications over the years. The one that I benefited most out of was OCSP. So I passed that one back in March 2021 on my second
offensive
attempt.
security one.
Yeah, offensive security certified practitioner. Certified professional, sorry. Yeah, that one taught me a lot of things. It taught me about being persistent. It's about keep trying. Doesn't matter if you fail once, just keep failing. Fail forward. Stop, just don't take any failure. Let me take it back a bit. So instead of seeing a failure is a failure only when you stop. Otherwise, a failure is a success that is not yet realized. So that's how I saw the things at that time. And yeah, that's probably what helped me.
Yeah. So what daily or weekly habit help you grow faster than your peers? Because everybody in the industry, then even the newcomers are just, everybody is trying on the same level probably. But I think it's some habits that we adopt over time that helps us a lot to grow as compared to all other people. So what was that daily or weekly habit for you?
What helped me? That's a great question. Probably one of the things that helped me a lot was being able to go in the gym. So working on my body helped me quite a bit, especially being skinny and introverted. That's two things that don't really work well together. I can tell you that for certain. But being in an MSP and working with customers, as I said, requires you to speak to people. And by working on myself, going in the gym, building muscle and having that kind of discipline benefited me quite a lot. That's probably one of the things. Other than that, is just spend a bit of time reading every day. Just think about it for a moment, okay? So let's say you can spend an hour a day reading, or you can spend, I don't know, studying 1 hour. If you do it every day, that's 365 hours in a year. Imagine if you can do in a weekend, you can do a few more. I think looking at 365 hours, I think that's enough time to be at least average at something. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be lockpicking, it could be any side of things. That's the two habits.
Completely agree with that. So talking about the MSSP, like what is something about leading cyber in an MSSP that people outside the industry totally misunderstand?
That's a great question. It's quite difficult, really. In a lot of cases, what happens is that customers expect that they're the only one. When you have a team of people, the whole point of having an MSSP or an organization that you work with is because they have the experience in-house and they can help you. But that also means that they help other people as well at the same time. So while something is a priority, it might not be as priority as something else. For example, the team might be dealing with a critical or very high incident for someone else, and they may not be available to, let's say, patch a very simple vulnerability or something like that. That's probably one of the things that a lot of organizations don't really understand. And you have a lot of expertise in-house. That's how MSSPs work and MSPs work in general. You have people with various skill sets that help each other and work together, and that's where the benefit comes from.
Yeah, so you have mentioned about the incidents. So the next question was on the same. So how do you stay calm when clients are panicking, threats are live, and the inbox is on fire?
There's always going to be problems every single day, but if you take it a step back and look at it, if everything is urgent, is actually everything urgent? There might be, you need to You as a leader, you need to see the whole picture and make judgment calls based on the available information. Otherwise, you go into the kind of process of decision paralysis where you can't make a decision because you think that more information is going to help you. You can have all the information in the world and then you get stuck making a decision. Just take it to the point where you go to a restaurant. You have a restaurant that has like 3 items on the menu. You're like, yeah, I'm gonna have that one. And then you go to this fancy, let's say, 5-star restaurant at a very expensive place in Dubai where the menu has 100 pages. It's gonna take you at least half an hour to make a decision on what type of water to have. So with the available information, you need to make a decision and understand the kind of impact. And well, it might not be the best one, is the best decision you could make at that point in time with the available information, right?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So, talking on the same thing when it comes to MSSP or any other jobs, what's the difference between managing a security team and truly leading one?
That's a great one. Very difficult at the same time. So, probably being there to know how to understand your team members' skills and where they are best utilized, because some people might be more consultative, some people might be more focused on a very specific technical side, some people have different expertise, and how do you make them shine on what they do best but also try to promote their weaknesses and get them out of them. For example, let's say you have this person which is very technical and does the things very better. They might be difficult to communicate. Is there anything you can do to help them be more efficient, be probably more expressive, be able to communicate? That's probably one of the important skills that you need to have to be able to lead the team. It's understanding the qualities of every single member and how they can work in tandem to achieve the common goal of securing your customers and making sure that it's efficient, they have reduced exposure, reduced attack surface, and they understand the importance of the things your team and the business does for them.
Completely agree with that. So, talking about the shifts and the careers within cybersecurity, so how do you see the cybersecurity landscape evolving over the next 3 to 5 years?
I mean, if we look back over the last 1 to 2 years, a lot of things changed with Attack GPT and all the random MMLs and all the kind of security AIs, and it's really hard to say. Probably where the way I see it is that a lot of the kind of level 1 roles are going to be discontinued potentially because you're going to have AI is growing and growing. But I see the importance of the next levels, which is the people that work and utilize the AI to be of utmost importance. They will need to be able to make judgment where AI is not able to distinguish, because AI makes decisions based on ones and zeros, right? When we as people have beliefs, we have knowledge, we have understanding and context awareness. We understand how attackers operate. We understand how the business functions and how specific people write messages in a very specific way. For example, let's take the scenario of a potential insider threat, right? We know that, I don't know, Amy or John in finance has a lot of typos usually. And then you receive an email from them which is written in perfect English. So that should put you off, but that might not be the same outcome for an AI. And that's where the role of second, third line engineers comes more important, to fine-tune what the AI is doing, to be able to spot it and be the escalation point when something does happen. That's the way I see it. I don't know if it's the best way, but that's what I can see it based off now. Things might change in the future.
Yeah. So saying that the attack surface is going to be more complex and complicated is not going to be wrong, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. So, on to the next question. So, what's one skill, it can be technical or soft, that people seriously underestimate in this field?
Communication is probably one of the biggest one. Are you able to communicate? That's one thing, okay? But are you able to communicate efficiently? Communication comes down from working with your colleagues to achieve the same goal. It comes with communicating with stakeholders, comes with communicating with people in difficult situations. It comes in different shapes, and sizes, and people don't see it as important, especially when it comes to, let's say, spoken. It's important because you need to get your message across, right? You're
Yeah.
working towards the same goal in a business. You're working towards the same goal with your team. Are you communicating efficiently? Are you guys achieving what the end goal is? And even in writing, are you sure you're communicating to the person in the right way? From a psychology point of view, there's various types of people. They tend to go on colors. There's a framework that you can look over it. So you have the very direct people, you have the very analytical people, you have the very friendly people, and you have the very solo business people. They go by color. It's red, blue, yellow, and green, depending on the kind of personality. Each one of them likes to be communicated in a very specific way. As you can imagine, if you speak to someone that's very direct, what kind of way does he like you to communicate to him? Bullet points, be concise. Don't waste time. Someone more analytical might want to have a very detailed breakdown, providing like what you tried, what you didn't try, and so on. So understanding that side of communication of the person you're speaking to, while you try to get your message across, does the person understand what you're actually saying?
Yeah. So if you were starting as an apprentice in 2025, how would you play the game differently?
How would I play the game differently? I don't know. I would probably still have the passion and drive and start somewhere. But apprenticeship, while it's a good starting point, may not be the end goal. And seeing what other skills I can pick up, I'll probably, what I really found beneficial for me was working in service desks. Because I worked in service desk, it taught me a lot about computers. Troubleshooting. Troubleshooting is a very essential skill that a lot of people in cybersecurity actually avoid or they don't understand. Like, for example, oh, it doesn't work. Let me search something else rather than trying to go through the code or go through the application, see what happens when it crashes, can you repeat it, and then finding a fix for it and then sharing it over. That's probably, the path I would follow would be the same as study, learn, apply the skills. Can I extrapolate on based on what I'm doing? Can I do other bits from in a more secure manner? And until there's a need for a member in the security team or until I find a job where I can leverage my skills. So things wouldn't change. Probably the same kind of certifications. OCSP, while it might be a bit old, is still good. It's a requirement for various organizations nowadays. It's also a requirement, for example, to be a lead auditor for the IASME framework in the UK. Of course, there are other alternatives, but OCSP teaches you to be patient and be able to understand how things work.
Yeah, completely agree with that. So what's one belief about cyber careers you wish more young people would ditch immediately?
Cyber entry-level jobs, probably that's one of my biggest pet peeve. It's an entry-level job. You're expected to at least have some knowledge of things. I can see a lot of people want to do this very complicated exploits and things like that, or they want to learn all those kind of things, but they don't know the basics. The way people should see security is a marathon, okay? You need to build the speed. You can't run.
Exactly.
Crawl, walk, run. And if you're really smart, fly. But I really hope more people get to the end of the marathon rather than trying to start running from the get-go.
Yeah, I'm going to write this in my diary. Crawl, walk, and run. I think that's really important. So that's a wrap on this episode of Started From Shell. Huge thanks to Vlad for being real, honest, and generous with his story. From apprentice to head of cyber, it's a proof that in this industry, where you start doesn't define where you can go. If today's conversation gave you some inspiration or insights, do me a favor, share it with one person who needs to hear it. And if you're building your own path in cyber, stick with us. We have got more stories like this coming. Until next time, stay curious, stay sharp, and never stop shelling out for growth. Thanks, Vlad, for joining in.
Thank you, Kamran, for having me once more. Take care and hope you guys have a lovely evening.